Yo, welcome back to another video. I don't care how many viewers we get for this video. We're pretty good when it comes to viewers. I just wanted to watch this video. I thought I'd watch it with y'all. Anyways, we interviewed James Gunn. I have not watched much of this video. I actually haven't watched any of it. Right now it's at 0.1 second. So I haven't watched any of it. I think we're ready to get right into it. Here we go. Let's click play.
Salvation it's in a totally different universe.
And could Ultraman be in that other dimension where Salvation is?
Well, I wouldn't go. Okay, but don't.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and I had an opportunity to chat with James Gunn himself, head of DC Studios and director of Superman, and its upcoming sequel, Man of Tomorrow, and of course the creator of the Peacemaker series. We talked about Gunn's plans for DC Studios' future, whether Planet Salvation is or is not leading to Darkseid, what Man of Tomorrow will really be about, and how DC will differentiate itself from Marvel Studios, and various other topics coming out of Peacemaker Season 2. And what was really fun about this interview is I got to be joined on this call with Ryan Arey from Screen Crush and Heather Antos. They are the best. I love them. And you can actually watch another version of this group discussion with Ryan and Heather sharing more of their thoughts on the Screen Crush channel. But in this new Rockstars video, I'm going to share our group conversation with James, and then I'm going to close out at the end of this video with just my takeaways of where the DCU is headed based on what we learned from James Gunn. So enjoy this interview with head of DC Studios, James Gunn. Should we go ahead and get started?
Do it.
If you guys don't mind, I have a quick question for James that I feel like might be on you guys' minds too. James, with Peacemaker's finale, spoiler warning for the Peacemaker finale, we're really seeing your first foray into the DC multiverse, and what it ended up being was like one nightmare dimension after another. We had a Nazi world, we had imps that eat your face, we had zombies, giant skull spiders, and now what seems like Darkseid's training ground with some parademons in the trees.
Well, I wouldn't go. Okay, but don't.
I almost tried to catch you there.
Don't expect too much. I mean, I think it's like, don't expect that to be exactly what it is. Like I said, I was just saying to somebody, so when I read Salvation Run, I really liked the idea of Salvation Run. I liked the idea of supervillains building a society in this other dimension. And I liked the way that it was a very practical way that Amanda Waller and Rick Flag Jr. in that instance were trying to deal with the problem of metahumans who continuously escape from prison in a way that I think a fed up government might. Those were the things that interested me. And one of the most fascinating things to me was in starting to deal with the larger overall story that I'm talking about doing, was reading that George R.R. Martin was the guy who came up with Salvation and what his concept was, which seemed to be much closer to what interested me about the project.
So nothing yet as to whether this training ground or this planet may be a Darkseid connection.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Are you sure?
I know a lot of your earliest influences were films like Night of the Living Dead and a lot of horror. I mean, your background with Slither and Belko Experiment, which, by the way, my best friend and her husband named their dog Belko after that movie.
Oh my God.
That's kind of weird.
So it's their favorite film. But I would love to know how your background with horror influences your work in the DCU.
Well, here's the truth. I think my love of horror comes from a love of monsters. So when I was a little kid, I loved like the universal horror movies like Frankenstein and the Werewolf. But a lot of this was really out of falling in love with the other, the monster, the strange, the disfigured, the unusual, the oddball, you know? And so I think that finding my way into horror as an adult was a way of expressing that. And in DC, it actually gets more to the point of what I really love, which are horror elements I really like. You know, I like the horror elements, but I'm a much bigger monster fan than I am a horror fan. And the truth is, so many of the characters, from King Shark the Weasel to whomever, they're monsters. And that's what I really am most interested in.
You know, kind of to that point, you did something interesting in Salvation. You specifically mentioned metahumans are getting sent there and not just villains. So I guess my question is that intentional? And if it is,
that was not intentional. I think that we see in episode 8, Rick Flag's intention is 100% to send metahuman villains to salvation. You know, that's his intention.
Got it. Okay, so good.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's his intention, and also, of course, it's a nice backdoor for him to screw over the guy that killed his son.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about how that book is about them building a society, and especially the Joseph Luther stuff. I mean, two absolute polar opposites. I guess, how are you going to be seeding this throughout other projects? Like, are we going to see more villains sent there? Are we going to see them on Salvation forming the society?
I really like it's. I want to give you answers, but like. So it's like, it's not about, I mean, it really is about, you got to remember the first and foremost thing is that I'm building a world, okay?
Right.
And in that world, an aspect of that world is now obviously Argus, who are in charge of metahuman activities, have taken it upon themselves to start sending metahuman prisoners to salvation. That's the plan, at least. And then we'll have to see how that affects and touches everything else. And one of our primary DCU characters, one of the people that's one of the more popular characters now in the DCU, is there.
The Flash?
Peacemaker.
James, I had a question. In the commentary for Superman,
No,
you mentioned the black hole, and you mentioned where does Ultraman go next? In your mind, do black holes lead to other universes? And is Salvation Planet, is that in another universe, or is it in the cosmos of this universe of the DCU?
The Salvation is in another, it's in a totally different universe. So that you can't just get on a ship and fly, 20 million light years and get to Earth. It's just not going to happen. It's a dimensional place, and there's so many dimensions that I think it makes it almost impossible for anyone to figure out a way to get from one to the other. That isn't by chance, which is what it was in this situation. I mean, the connection into Salvation.
And could Ultraman perhaps be in that other dimension where Salvation is?
He could be, but that would be quite a huge coincidence.
Okay.
October is a good time to think about ghosts. Ghosts are echoes of you that linger around somewhere long after you're gone. That's kind of how data works. It's like a little ghost you leave behind when you visit a website. After you go, data brokers.
What you think about Darkseid as a character, in the comics, or what makes him compelling to put in stories?
I think Dark's, okay. First of all, there's Kirby's whole world, which he created, which is totally fascinating. So that's a huge part of it. It's the new gods in general that is, to me, so interesting, which we're dealing with Mr. Miracle. And I have the screenplay that I haven't read yet on my shelf right now. So
I thought,
there's that aspect of it, and then there are aspects of Darkseid as in Thanos are obviously very similar. They look very similar, and because of that, I think that to give you probably more than an answer than you expected, I don't using Darkseid as the big bad right now is not necessarily the thing, because for a lot of reasons, because Zach did it so cool in his way, and because Thanos and Marvel,
I thought Mr. Miracle was a TV series. Is it a screenplay now? Is it a show?
No, it's
a film.
No, did I call it?
Okay.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah. We hang on everything you say.
I know.
So we can you can't say anything without us
believe
going,
me.
well, Batman 2 takes place in the DCU, guys.
I saw my conversation in the car in Mexico at 8 a.m. that everyone made such a big deal about, that I didn't even see till after this. I was asking people, 2 days before the episode came out, I saw a bunch of people saying, "What's the big cameo going to be?" And I was like, "What do you mean the big?"
Sorry, Eric.
The cameo is Lex. It's the biggest actor we have in the DC.
Yeah.
You wasted that.
But where did you start, Ryan? What was
No. I asked you what makes Dark Side. You answer my question. I asked what makes Dark Side compelling about Mr. Miracle. I don't want to step on
Yeah,
that.
Mr. Miracle's a TV show. I have supposedly the first episode is really good. I just haven't read it yet. I've been working on Creature Commandos this morning.
Why, you busy or something?
Yeah, I know.
James, I wanted to ask you, now that you're studio head, you're kind of in a position to where, yeah, every word you say is being quoted as some kind of news or being pulled apart. You know, we're so used to every summer having studio heads from other franchises out there with their big slate reveal, calendar dates, years in the future. Is that something you plan to do, or do you have a different plan? Do you look at things like Comic-Con as an opportunity to explain your plans to the fans, or do you like doing things like smaller social media releases?
I think it's a case by case basis. But I think the one thing I've sort of found in my time, both making movies and being somewhat in the public eye, is that it just depends on the situation. Sometimes you really benefit from, going to Comic-Con and spending, millions of dollars and selling, an idea, especially when you have a great trailer or something like that. But other times, I post a picture of the cover of a screenplay on Instagram for $0, and it's equally effective. It gets just as much press. So you have to kind of always ask yourself, what is it that's worth spending money on? And the truth for me is a lot of what I the hard thing for me is I just don't have much time, So, like, to be completely honest, I really appreciate what you guys have done with the show and everything. I appreciate your shows. I think they're fun to watch, whether about my stuff or something else. And so this was my idea to do, a handful of people whose stuff I enjoy and say, let's give them a little bit of time, because I appreciate it. And
We
you
appreciate that.
make
Thanks,
this.
My gosh, thank you so much.
I was
So yeah, so like that's why I'm doing this. But my time gets crazy, and so you think about, I live in Georgia. I'm gonna fly out to Comic-Con for these days that could be spent doing another draft of Man of Tomorrow, and I'm like, I don't know, because what matters to me at the end of the day is quality.
We, like you said, we have a lot of fun theorizing different villains, different things, this, boom tubes, etc. One thing that really surprised me and that I loved about this season of Peacemaker is it seems like, used to the TV we're used to, where the heroes discover the evil dimension, they liberate the dimension, they get to leave, everybody's happier because that's not the 11th Street kids.
Yeah.
And I loved that you completely subverted my expectation. Was there ever a point when you said, should they help the people? Should they stop the Nazis? Like, how did that come about, that?
There was at one point, I think I mentioned this on our podcast, there was a point in which there was more of a story there which would be fun to tell. I just didn't have enough episodes to tell the story, and so, but liberate the country. They're 4 guys, they're 5 people.
Right. And they barely count as 5 people.
They really, you got Judo Master, maybe he counts as 2 people, so it's like, they're not, they're people. I think that for me, the real important thing, again, for the whole season was the emotional crux of where we were going with these characters. And really, the thing of subverting expectations in that way, of creating a story that was a superhero show that ended up being completely about one person's journey and his inability to accept who he is as a human being. And secondarily, 2 other people's journeys really strongly, Adebiles and Harcourt's, that were entwined with that story. That was what most interested me and was allowing the other stuff to take a background to that. But also, the stuff about the Nazi dimension was, from a personal standpoint, it was about those characters. It was about Harcourt and Economos especially, who have been sort of tools of the system for a long time, who don't really haven't acted with much morality, despite except for what they did at the end of the Suicide Squad, sort of protecting those guys. they are at their hearts good people, but they aren't heroes in the typical sense. And when Augie gives his speech to Amelia Harcourt, um, I get why there's a debate over who Augie is. And I can see how I'm like Augie in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, you just kind of live in the system and you give money to the people that you want to give money to, and you do what you can do to be nice and to cause social change in an everyday way, in the small ways that you can, but you can't destroy the system. But there's other people out there who are much more courageous, who are doing everything they can to make this world a better place. And I think that Harcourt, especially, but also Economos, hear that speech and they realize that they are exactly the same as Augie. And I think their choice at the end of 8 is a choice to be something much more than that, and to really put their asses and themselves on the line in the most drastic and extreme way possible. And that's what their story is for me.
Beautifully said, but can GI Robot at least go into that dimension? We're done. It's the number one thing.
Believe me, if I knew how popular GI Robot was, you have to remember I wrote all this stuff at the same time. It was already finished, from Creature Commandos. Superman Peacemaker was already done. And in fact, the next few things were already planned out by the time, I shot this stuff. Right. I know that GI Robot was going to become the sort of icon that he's become. But I know now, let me tell you, so we're dealing with him. Hey guys, I'm being really sincere. I really do appreciate what you guys are doing. I can't believe how smart your stuff is, how fun it is to watch, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for giving us such a cool franchise to be able to pull apart, James. You're doing amazing work.
Thank you
so much, James.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was an amazing conversation. And again, subscribe to Screen Crush and watch Ryan and Heather's video for more of their insights. Here now is what I can now confirm about James Gunn's DCU plan. First, Planet Salvation is not necessarily headed to Darkseid and the Final Crisis storyline, as many of us speculated in our breakdowns of the Peacemaker Season 2 finale. But James Gunn has said in other interviews that Salvation and the relationship between Lex Luthor and Rick Flag Sr. and Superman will all be very important to Man of Tomorrow. He actually called it, quote, the escalating war that's going on between the government and metahumans. He said that this is an idea he's had in his head for a long time, and it just sounds like the whole idea is it's not just going to be DC villains in Planet Salvation, it's going to be any metahumans. It's going to be their more extreme version of Arkham Asylum. So James Gunn has said that he just loves the concept of Salvation Run as it was imagined from a pitch from George R.R. Martin, as an inescapable prison planet for metahumans, and with that in mind, any DC metahuman could end up on that planet. It won't just be Lex versus the Joker as it was in the comics. Actually, when Rolling Stone asked Gunn if this whole idea of masked government agents showing up to kidnap metahumans in the middle of the night, taking them to some unknown detainment center, could have been something pulled from current events in the headlines, and Gunn hinted that, that wasn't entirely coincidental. Now, when it comes to me, I wasn't looking forward that much to Darkseid being a big bad anyway when it came to James Gunn's plans. Like, we already saw where Zack Snyder was going with that in the Snyder Cut. We already saw Thanos in the MCU. And in fact, I don't need any big bad. Really, I just love how it sounds like James Gunn is diverging from the Marvel model by making situational villains and thematic villains linked to the heroes of each story, and villains who, this is very important, are not killed off or destroyed by the ends of those stories. Like they are an op in one story and an ally in the next, while still retaining the core aspects of their characters. Like we're already seeing that with Lex Luthor. He was a villain in Superman, and now he's going to be an anti-hero who's still very much an evil prick who just has to work.
I think we got the gist. Thank y'all for watching. I'm gonna see you on the next